What's good? It's Woog. It looks like they have selected Anthony Joshua's comeback opponent. And, we knew that it was going to be somebody who was outside of like the top 8, top 10. We knew that it wasn't going to be one of the best heavyweights out there. I mean, he's coming off of back-to-back decision losses against Alexander Usyk, the former undisputed cruiserweight champ who's now got 3 of the belts at heavyweight. And we're hoping that they finalize the fight between him and the Gypsy King Tyson Fury for the battle for undisputed at heavyweight. But there was a lot of speculation on who Anthony Joshua was going to fight next. I was privately hoping that it was either Otto Wallin, even though I thought that was a little bit of a long shot, but I was hoping maybe somebody of that caliber, or Ali Demirazin. Demirazin recently beat Adam Kownacki, stopped Gerald Washington a couple fights prior to that. So I was thinking maybe Demirazin would be a very good opponent, but Demirazin's been fighting on PBC lately, so I didn't think that Demirazin would necessarily be the next opponent, although I thought that he was an appropriate matchup. Other people I was kind of thinking were a possibility were Zhang Jie Li, even though seeing how Zhang Jie Li dropped Ergovich in that fight, and it was kind of anybody's guess who was going to win that decision. Maybe Zhang Jie Li was a little too dangerous of a comeback opponent. I mean, Zhang Jie Li's about to fight Joe Joyce. Whew, that's going to be, oh man. But the opponent that they have selected is Jermaine Franklin. And Jermaine Franklin's the guy who just fought a very close decision loss against Dillian White. And the idea is that if Anthony Joshua gets past this next opponent, now we know this next opponent is likely going to be Jermaine Franklin. And by the way, they're targeting an April 1st date at the O2 Arena. But the idea is that if AJ passes Jermaine Franklin, then he's going to fight Dillian White sometime in mid-2023. So a few months later, he would have the showdown with Dillian White. And it looks like Dillian White is going to take a fight in between as well. There were rumors that it might be against Otto Wallin, which was a fight that they were looking to make a year and some change ago. I was actually hoping that fight went down. I was very interested to see Dillian White versus Otto Wallin. But, I'm not mad at this Jermaine Franklin pick for Anthony Joshua. This is meant to be a bit of a confidence booster. This is a very winnable fight for Anthony Joshua, in my opinion. Look, I think that Jermaine Franklin has some good tools. He's a pretty good boxer. I think that there are some top 10 guys that he could give some issues to. The issue with Anthony Joshua is that Jermaine Franklin's not a mover. He's not somebody with Alexander Usyk-like feet or anywhere near that. He's not a southpaw, and he's also much shorter, so he's gonna have to work to get inside the reach of the 6'6" Anthony Joshua. Joshua's got like an 82-inch reach. And I kind of suspect that Anthony Joshua might fight this fight like he fought the Andy Ruiz rematch, where he was moving around a little bit more, working behind the jab. I think that he's going to do more of that than he will fight in the way that he fought Kubrat Pulev, where he was a little bit more comfortable letting some of those power punches go. But look, a lot of people think that AJ's best days are behind him. They think that he just has, too many confidence or mental issues in terms of how those confidence issues will impact his performance. I'm just saying, slow down. The guy was just in there with, potentially an all-time great in Alexander Usyk. Like, the guy hasn't lost professionally yet. And we'll see how he does against the Gypsy King. But, I mean, Alexander Usyk is, he's a 6'3" guy who's a southpaw who's got absolutely elite technical boxing skills. And again, he's a southpaw who moves his head constantly. So Anthony Joshua, no, he's not super confident in throwing his power punches with any assurance that those power punches are going to land. I thought that he did better in the rematch against Usyk than he did in the first fight. He went to the body more and he pressured Usyk more. Jermaine Franklin is not Alexander Usyk. So I look at this as being a situation, and by the way, Jermaine Franklin doesn't move his head a ton. So I think that Anthony Joshua will be much more confident once he gets the jab going to start mixing in some power punches with some assurance that they're gonna land. Even if Jermaine Franklin, he's pretty good at rolling with certain shots, and you can see that in his fight against Dillian White, But again, he's a lot more stationary than Usyk. He's a couple inches shorter than even Kubrat Pulev, who I believe is like 6'4". So this is going to be the shortest opponent that Anthony Joshua has fought since even before Andy Ruiz. Andy Ruiz, I think, is 6'3". Alexander Povetkin would have been the next shortest guy. Povetkin was 6'2" as well. And Povetkin had some early success against Anthony Joshua. But I think that Alexander Povetkin, you know, he was a lot more deceptive and explosive with his power punching opportunities than Jermaine Franklin is. So Jermaine Franklin might be able to turn this into a pretty rugged fight if he's able to get inside Anthony Joshua's jab. I just think that Anthony Joshua will do his best to do enough to keep him at arm's length to where only one of these guys is going to be landing at this range. So I think that this is a smart opponent selection. Both of these guys are coming off losses. Again, Anthony Joshua's coming off of back-to-back decision losses. Jermaine Franklin just suffered his first very close, again, close majority decision loss against Dillian Whyte. And Dillian Whyte, to most people's eyes, didn't look great in that fight as well. So there's a question on whether or not Dillian Whyte is still in his prime. Is he still as good now as he was when he, for instance, beat Joseph Parker or when he stopped Derek Chisora? I mean, that remains to be seen. He has been knocked out twice since those fights. Once by Alexander Povetkin, a fight that he then avenged and stopped Povetkin and retired Povetkin in the rematch. And then most recently against Tyson Fury. So we don't know exactly where Dillian Whyte is, but we know that Jermaine Franklin is extremely motivated. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He feels he deserved the decision win against Dillian Whyte. I thought that it could have gone either way. I didn't have a problem with Dillian Whyte edging that one, but Jermaine Franklin really wants to make a statement. I mean, he really seemed upset with that decision loss. Like, he really seems, and was, you know, tweeting about it, I believe, as well, and believes that he won that fight. So I'm happy that he's got this next opportunity in big payday against Anthony Joshua. I just don't think Jermaine Franklin, I mean, I'll do a proper preview as we near the fight date, and I might even do an early thoughts video if this fight gets made official and we've got the flyer and everything. I would put the status at near official. I mean, it looks like that's going to be the fight that's made. But my initial instinct is that I could just see it being a thing where Anthony Joshua is able to just kind of keep on blasting Jermaine Franklin with the jab, and Jermaine Franklin is kind of sitting on the outside figuring out, how am I going to get inside of this reach? And when you're coming inside of the reach of Anthony Joshua, you've got to worry about his right hand and you've got to worry about his left hook. So Jermaine Franklin's got to be careful. I wouldn't be totally surprised if Anthony Joshua gets his first stoppage since knocking out Kubrat Pulev, which was his first stoppage since knocking out Alexander Povetkin back in 2018. So again, Anthony Joshua's last two knockout wins have come against Alexander Povetkin in September of 2018 and then against Kubrat Pulev in December of 2020. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets his next knockout against Jermaine Franklin. But look, we'll see. And plus, there's the whole question about his training or trainer situation. He was working with Robert Garcia leading up to that rematch against Alexander Usyk. The rumor is, according to Robert Garcia, that Anthony Joshua is now going to be working with esteemed trainer, my trainer of the year. I get that a lot of people have Bob Santos as their trainer of the year. He trains the new belt holder Albert Puello, and he trains like Hector Garcia, and he did have a phenomenal 2022. I just had Derek James as being the trainer of 2022. You know, he trains Errol Spence Jr., who's got 3 belts at 147. He trains Jermell Charlo, who's the undisputed champion at 154. He trains the very good prospect who just beat Michelle Rivera, Frank Martin. So yeah, Derek James, it sounds like, is now going to be working with Anthony Joshua as well. And a lot of people wanted to see Anthony Joshua shake things up camp-wise and actually come to the United States and work with one of the trainers out here and basically kind of remove himself from his comfort zone. So we'll see if he's actually working with Derek James. I think that that would be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see the application of those skills, because sometimes you want to be able to work on these things over the course of a couple of fights until they start feeling like second nature. Anthony Joshua is heading into his mid-30s 30s now. So we're gonna see if you could kind of teach an old dog, relatively old, you know, not an old fighter, but an older dog, new tricks. I mean, I did see him picking up new skills, I felt, under the tutelage of Robert Garcia, and I kind of wanted to see him stay in that lane and work with Garcia for at least one more fight. But it looks like he's going to be switching things up again. We'll see how these things work out in his next fight against, again, I feel an appropriately selected opponent in Jermaine Franklin. But yeah, let me know what your early thoughts are on Joshua versus Jermaine Franklin. Are you pleased with this opponent selection? Again, we knew that it wasn't going to be a super elite talent. He wasn't going to hop in the ring with, you know, Joe Joyce next or somebody like that. So yeah, Jermaine Franklin, he is relatively dangerous, but he's not like a big time knockout artist. So Anthony Joshua doesn't have to worry about just getting blasted with one shot that changes everything, even though this is the heavyweight division, and he did get caught upside the head by Andy Ruiz, but you know, Andy Ruiz punches pretty damn hard and has super fast hands, especially when he gets inside of your reach. And make no mistake, Jermaine Franklin, he will mess you up if you get into some of these exchanges with him. But, you know, I saw Jerry Force and Jermaine Franklin have a rugged distance fight. I just don't see Jermaine Franklin's style translating against Anthony Joshua. I mean, unless Anthony Joshua truly has some psychological issues in the ring and is affected by these recent losses. I mean, not only did he have these back-to-back losses, but he has lost 3 out of his last 5 fights, if you count the first fight against Andy Ruiz Jr., where Anthony Joshua suffered a 7th round stoppage, dropped 4 times in that fight. Unless Anthony Joshua is kind of a shot fighter, mentally at least, I think that he should be able to handle business against Jermaine Franklin, probably by stoppage. I think that he could really use a stoppage win for his momentum, for his own confidence, and so forth. But yeah, let me know what your early thoughts are on this one in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.